This is a live TV news update. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. I am Olubinga George. First, let's get the headlines. Disquiet as DSS makes serious allegations against politicians. Customers protest as banks begin enforcement. Documents from Biden's vice presidency found. And in sport, Gareth Bale, arguably Wales' greatest, departs.
Live TV.
Now's the news in detail. The Department of State Services, DSS, has alleged that there is a plot by some Nigerian politicians to bring its Director General, Yusuf Bichi, and some key officials to disrepute. Peter Afunaya, the DSS spokesperson, in a statement on Tuesday, January 10, claimed that the SAT politicians are fighting against the service's uncompromising stance on some critical governance and policy issues. Afunaya added that sections of the media have been briefed to implement the strategy through sponsored articles, commentaries, and features to malign the DG, his family, and select officials of the DSS. He disclosed that the service at the moment is monitoring developments and will allow the plotters to either exhaust themselves or rescind the plan of action. It expressed uncertainty that no amount of intimidation, harassment, and blackmail will deter it from discharging its duties, but that it will not idly watch a group of dissatisfied gang to undermine the service and its highly dedicated leadership and management. The security agency disclosed that the politicians are using civil and non-governmental organizations as tools to discredit Bichi. It therefore asks the public to be wary of these tendencies and ignore the antics of dark forces out to impugn the character of the DG. It restates its unalloyed support to the president on his resolve to continue to confront head-on threats on national security, as well as create the enabling environment necessary for the 2023 general elections to hold. Over 20 deposit money banks on Monday began the implementation of the Central Bank of Nigeria's new cash withdrawal limit policy across the country, with bank customers expressing anger over the new rule. The governor of the CBN, Godwin Emefiele, had on December 21, 2022, vowed to pressure and revise the bank's earlier cash withdrawal limit. The CBN reviewed upwards the maximum weekly limit for cash withdrawal across all channels by individuals and corporate organizations to 500,000 naira and 5 million naira respectively. The CBN attributed the development to the feedback it got from the stakeholders. For transactions above the withdrawal limits, financial institutions are required to get the details of the customers and upload the same on the CBN portal created for the purpose. In the earlier circular it issued on December 6, 2022, the CBN had said that with effect from January 9, 2023, the maximum over-the-counter cash withdrawal limit by individuals and corporate organizations per week would be 100,000 and 500,000 naira respectively, adding that withdrawals above this limit would attract processing fees of 5% and 10% respectively. It further stated that the maximum cash withdrawal per week via automated teller machines from January 9 would be 100,000 naira, subject to a maximum of 20,000 naira cash withdrawal per day. The Apex Bank also directed banks to load only 200 naira and lower denominations into their ATMs. Following the previous directive, many stakeholders kicked against it. The Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents of Nigeria said that point-of-sale operators would protest as the policy was targeted at killing their source of livelihood. However, the reviewed cash limit, which took effect on Monday, faced severe opposition from bank customers who accused the central bank of not being sensitive to the plight of cash-based businesses. And now to the foreign scene. Classified documents from Joe Biden's vice presidential days were discovered in November by the United States President's personal attorneys at a Washington think tank, a White House lawyer said on Monday. Nearly 10 documents were found at Biden's office at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, American media reported earlier, adding that the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland had asked the U.S. Attorney in Chicago to review the classified documents which were handed over to the National Archives. The classified material was identified by personal attorneys for Biden on November 2, days before the midterm elections. Richard Sauber, special counsel to the president, said in the statement on Monday. The Penn Biden Center is named for Biden, who periodically used the office space from mid-2017 until the start of his 2020 presidential campaign. The White House counsel's office notified the National Archives on the day of the discovery of those documents, Sauber said, adding the National Archives took possession of the material on the following morning. Sauber also said the documents were not subject of any previous request or inquiry by the National Archives. And now in sports. It was a moment Welsh football had been dreading for what felt like an age, a long-looming inevitability that a nation had put to the back of its mind for fear that it might actually become true. And yet, when it finally arrived, Gareth Bale's announcement of his retirement still came as a shock of seismic proportions. This was a day Wales could see coming, just not this soon. Speculations regarding Bale's future had raged for years, dominating the final stages of his glittering career at Real Madrid and following him at the past two major tournaments with Wales. But there is no escaping time. While 33 might be a relatively young age to retire, Bale had been showing signs of slowing as his body bore the toll of a superhuman 17-year career. Logic suggested this day would come, but then again, Bale had kept defying logic to conjure moments of magic even as he appeared to be losing some of his powers of old. His retirement marks the end not only for arguably the finest player Wales has ever produced, but also the beginning of the end for the greatest era in the country's footballing history. Bale elevated Wales into new heights, embodying his nation's rise from lowly underachievers to major tournament regulars. In doing so, he transcended his sport, a phenomenal athlete whose global renown brought Wales to the world's attention. To quantify such an impact is a near impossible task, and although boiling Bale's career down to numbers and achievements is reductive, they bear repeating. And that's all on News Update for today. I am Olubenga George.